Hey there. Welcome to the Camden Famous podcast. I'm your host, April Shaw-Beaudoin. Whether you're a local, a seasonal visitor, or just curious about Mid-Coast Maine, you're in the right spot. We dive into the stories behind the must-visit places, from cozy eateries and unique shops to can't-miss attractions. For more insights and to join our community, check out our website at camdenfamous.com or follow us on Instagram at camdenfamous. Let's explore the best of Mid-Coast Maine together. The Camden Famous podcast is brought to you by The Wharf at Lyman Morse. The Wharf is a beautiful waterfront destination on the sunny side of Camden Harbor. The Wharf at Lyman Morse offers a one-of-a-kind dining, shopping, and lodging experience. Plus, don't miss the sunset over Camden Harbor from the Salt Wharf, their rooftop restaurant and bar. Visit thewharfcamden.com. That's the WHARF Camden.com to start your adventure today. Meet Lincoln and Jaclyn Gilson today, guiding sails on the Schooner Olad and Cutter Owl. Learn about sailing adventures out of Camden and what makes these trips with a local captain unique. Welcome to the show, guys.
Hi, thanks for having us.
Thank you.
So today we're going to talk about what it's like to sail in Mid-Coast Maine and what it's like specifically to sail aboard the Olad and the Owl. Do you want to take us through a little bit of how you got started? Both Jaclyn and Aaron are Mid-Coast Maine natives, but they have not always only sailed in Mid-Coast Maine.
I always love that question about how I got started. And I always usually tell people I went to school for graphic arts, and then I realized I, had a job right out of college and was getting paid pretty good, and I realized I hated it. So one of my kind of clients, they owned a couple of boats, and we did some advertising for them. And, without going into it too long, I basically gave my notice one day, and that was kind of a shock to the people that I was working with. And then at lunchtime, I ran into Sue on the corner of the street because it's a small town. And she looked kind of like a little ho-hum, and I told her, hey, I'm sorry, I can't be your advertiser anymore. I just gave my notice. I don't really know what I'm doing next, but she's looked at me kind of funny, basically, and we came to the conversation like, would you like to work on my sailboat? And I was like, can I start in 2 weeks? I just gave my 2-week notice. That's how I started.
Wow.
I learned how to sail like a little bit as a kid in the Boy Scouts, but I went sailing one time with her. 2 weeks later, didn't know how it's going to turn out because I didn't really know what I was doing. Came home a little scarred up, I guess, and I laughed because I had the best day I'd had in years.
Wow.
Even though my body was kind of like, ow. I don't know. I hope that answers that question, but
yeah, and so that kicked off now a 20-year plus career.
Yep.
On the water.
I really didn't know what I was doing next, and I had a pretty good mentor that lived here. His name was Ken Carlson. He lived to be 101 years old. And he had me over to his house, and he was kind of like offering me a job, I think. And we were sitting at his Bayview Street house, and he was like, well, what do you want to do? And I was like, I don't know. I think I want to take 6 months off and learn how to sail that white sailboat out in front of your house. And just like joking, kind of. He's like, what do you mean? I was like, well, I've always wanted to learn how to sail one of those old boats. Like, I've lived here my whole life, and I've never been on one. That seems really crazy. I'm going to just see if I can get a job with one of those boats. And he smiled and looked at me, and I had no idea he also knew the owner of the boats and had helped them get started like 25 years earlier.
Oh, wow.
Or 20 years earlier. So it became very serendipitous.
Wow, I would say so. That's the right word.
So my 6-month-long job turned into, it's been 24 years total since I've been on the boat.
Wow. And Jaclyn, how did you get started? Do you know how to sail? Like, could you hop on board if...
Oh, absolutely not. That is why I do the office work. I actually met Aaron when I was in high school and started working down on the dock selling tickets down there. That's where I started my connection with Aaron, and I grew up in the Mid-Coast. My mom taught his kids in school, so it's just wonderful, small community. And then I ended up going to school in Boston. I went to college there, lived in Boston for a few years, and realized I wanted to be back in Maine. And I wanted to work in the community with local businesses. I didn't want to work in an office all the time, which is definitely a big perk of this job. It's a lot of outdoor time. Every day is different. with this job.
And you have an office, not an office, but a building, like a storefront right in downtown Camden, right on Main
Yes.
Street. So are you there every hour that you're working during the week, or do you go down to the dock too?
Yeah, so every day is a little bit different for me. So some days I'm sitting on the dock selling tickets. You can find me down there. Some days I'm in our little office at the public landing right by the chamber's office. That's kind of our home base in the summer. And then some days I'm up on Main Street as well in that little shop.
And you can buy merchandise there. They brought me a hat. I'm really excited
Yeah.
to rock the hat around town. And so you reconnected with Aaron and
Yeah, yep. I was working at different legal offices. I studied environmental science and I was working in different environmental law offices, and I just wanted kind of a shift. I didn't really think I wanted to be a lawyer. So that was kind of the natural next step for me in those offices. But this was just a really great opportunity to work close to home and with awesome, fun people.
yeah. And how long have you been here now?
I moved back to Maine during the pandemic, actually. Me and my partner wanted to get out of our tiny Boston apartment for a few weeks, and it's been 4 years now. So we're really happy to be in Maine and
That's
back
awesome.
here. Yeah.
That's awesome. So, Aaron, what does a normal day look like for you in the summertime?
Oh wow, I go back to what she just said. It's like I don't think the word normal works for
Yeah.
this type of job.
Yeah.
I mean, no matter what, I get up in the morning, and every other business owner, I'm going through a few emails. I'm making sure I know what's going on a couple weeks out because it changes dynamically. We are always producing experiences for people, but somebody could call, 2 weeks out and say, "Hey, I want to get married out on Warren Island, right? And let's do a lobster bake." And we're like, yes, we can do that. But the moment that happens, it's like there's 2 weeks worth of work there. So I'm always trying to keep ahead of these kind of things, but also the maintenance of the boat. So it's like every morning is like a little combination between, what's going on with charters and special trips that we have going on, and making sure the boats are really safe and, being kept up. And then if I'm driving the boat, then basically for the next 12 to 14 hours, I'm just on the boat, as long as it's daylight. We have such a long day in Maine, right?
Yeah,
Like during the
yeah.
summer, it starts early. The sun's setting around 9 o'clock in June. So, that means we're out until 9 o'clock because people want to see the sunset. So there's 5 trips a day from the middle of June to the middle of August.
So, obviously, you cannot captain 2 boats at once. How many other team members do you all have?
I think last year between the store, the ticket sellers, the mates, and the captains, we had 22 or 23 employees right in there, around in there.
Mm-hmm.
But there are 6 captains because if you work 3 days, you've worked over 40 hours a week during the summer.
So, if a visitor or a local wants to come board the Olad or the Cutter Owl, how do they go about booking with you, and what does a normal trip look like? I know we're not supposed to use the word normal, but maybe you can talk about the variety of trips that you offer.
Yeah. So people visiting Camden find us a variety of ways. We sell tickets down on the dock in person. We sell them up in our store in person. We're getting a lot of inquiries this time of year in March and February and April for people planning their trips and booking ahead online. And in terms of what our typical trips are, so as Aaron said, we do 5 trips a day from June to mid-August. And those are 2-hour sails. They're just a wonderful scenic trip out of Camden Harbor. You'll cruise out past Curtis Island Lighthouse at the edge of the harbor. You'll get to watch or help raise the sails on the boats. And then you'll set sail and head out, sometimes across the bay. Sometimes you'll hug the shore. It really depends on the wind speed and wind conditions. And Aaron could speak to that more because he is the sailor.
Yeah, there's another one of those, like there's nothing normal. There's no really like 2 hours that are the same on the bay, which is probably one of the reasons that I have fallen in love with this kind of work, because it's constantly changing. Like I never feel like, I do the same thing over again. I mean, there are some things that I do over and over again, but it's like other things, just so quickly changing. It's like you really, being a sailor versus maybe being a motorboat captain, I feel like you're just so much more in tune to the weather. But it's also just the nuances of like people ask me at 9 o'clock in the morning, where are we going today? And the breeze isn't up yet. And I'm like, no idea. I mean, and I'm being honest. But it is also like in that morning, you really are trying to take the weather reports into consideration and how much wind there is. And that really opens up what we do for the whole day.
I would love for you to share a little bit about the wildlife that you see on a typical trip, and I'm using air quotes.
Yeah.
But also anything you've sailed out kind of past the mid-coast islands and seen in Maine.
I would say mostly, in the close proximity to the shore, as far as marine mammals go, I do see the occasional whale. And this year I saw, there was like a really strange miniature, like it was a pygmy sperm whale. And I saw it, and I was like, I thought at first it was a pilot whale, and I was like, no, it's not acting like a pilot whale. And then I was like, oh, maybe it's a minke, and I was like, this isn't really like that. And it didn't sit well with me, but it was super cool because I was just looking at this whale off the boat. And then later on, I saw that some marine biologist out of one of the islands, I can't remember if it was North Haven or Vinyl Haven, was like coming unglued because he had just seen one of the rarest whales in Maine outside of his island. And I knew that because I had been right in that area. That's what I saw. I don't see as many whales as I used to, but like some years I'll see like, a few of them, and there's other people on the boat will see them. And then other years we don't see any of them.
I've gone out a few times on a schooner in mid-coast Maine. I think I've seen some porpoises.
Yep.
And
A lot of porpoises.
And definitely there's a seal right in the harbor that I personally love going down, at sunrise and watch him eat all of the fish that are in there. And he has a name, right? Camden.
Is it Henrietta?
Henrietta. One of the questions that I always love to ask our guests is, what do they love about being in business in mid-coast Maine? Obviously, you could take the skills that you have and go anywhere you want. What's special about mid-coast Maine for you?
I don't know. I mean, there's a couple of things that I think are really interesting. I mean, first of all, just at our own business, I love all the family connections that we have. I mean, we had 3 families that had multiple members working for us this summer, So that's really great. And then just the symbiotic connections, like the owner of the boat's daughter was working with us for the last couple of years too. That's kind of amazing. She worked for me when she was 16, and she's come back on and off over the years. And that's just really wonderful because, really after 24 years of hiring people, I've been very fortunate to only have to let go of a couple. And I would say on top of that, there's only really a couple of people that maybe if they showed up at my house, I wouldn't feed them dinner, but everybody else, I would make it work. Do you know what I mean? And my kids feel that way. They have a lot of extra uncles and aunts that have showed up over the years. And so that's pretty special. And I also think it's such a unique group of people here. I tell people when I'm training them to be a new captain, especially, or a new crew member, when they're just, you never know who you're going to talk to. And, some of the people I've taken out once and just had a good conversation have become really lifelong friends. But it is that I love that. That's something that's really unique about this place that might not be the same in other places, maybe not even the same in other places in Maine.
That is actually a through line through everyone that has shared about what's special about mid-coast Maine, and it's the people, and it's also a sense of collaboration. That's another common answer I've been hearing. One thing that you didn't say, which I expected you to say, and maybe I'm going to be wrong, but just the beauty of mid-coast Maine is that maybe part of.
If you go the other direction, did you ask me the question just slightly different? What is the best part about sailing in Camden? I would tell you that there is a reason also that I'm in this town versus Bar Harbor or Portland. There's really nothing like this place. That's part of the reason why I'm here. So your beautiful question is beautiful. I mean,
well, that's a fantastic answer. Much better than I could have hoped for. So there are several schooners and several boats people can take out of Camden. What is special about the Olad and the Owl?
Both boats sail really, really well. If you're just a sailing purist, and you've got nothing else in your quiver but that, even if you've never been on an old boat, when you sail on those two boats, you get right away that, oh, these boats might be almost 100 years old, but they sail really well. Like they maneuver really well. And that really allows us to be able to do things, but they're also really comfortable. They were built to have people on them, they both have a beautiful seating cockpit. They both have cushioned seating for people who want that, but also there's a lot of deck space on both boats. So, you can move around. I don't think you have to feel like you're stuck in your seat. I don't want that for people. So, I mean, those kind of things are great. I think as a business owner, I've done a pretty good job of hiring people that are like in my own light in a way. I want people who are excited about this job. And, I think one of the assets of the boat are the people that work on them too. I think that they're genuinely interested and knowledgeable, and they have all different knowledges, like one of my captain could tell you the best place to go surfing in Maine during the winter. You know what I mean? They all have life experiences. We all travel a lot. So, we have a lot of things to share usually every summer because we've gone away for a while. But I think the people that work on the boats are, as equally beautiful as the boats are. And I think I'm just going to speak for myself. I mean, I'm going to definitely have a slanted opinion here, but I think those boats are really beautiful. I think they really stick out in a crowd. I like that there are two really high quality boats too. Like they're built well.
One thing I thought that was really neat, we came on the Olad a few years ago for my husband's birthday, and you're allowed to bring your own food and drink on. And I think sailing in other parts of the country, we were not able to do that before. So I thought that was really special to be able to have like a little picnic while you're watching the sunset. One of the most beautiful summer memories that you can have as a couple or as a family, or, you can bring your parents on. So Jaclyn and I were talking, and they have how many weddings planned for this summer?
We currently have 5 weddings planned this summer and a few other private charters that are just celebrations either leading up to the wedding or, a couple of days after. So we have a very busy calendar of weddings this season.
That's so exciting. And people can just reach out to you. They can probably even reach out to you via Instagram and start that conversation if they want to learn.
Yep,
more.
Absolutely. People can reach out to us on Instagram at Schooner Olad. You can also email us info@mainschooners.com to start that dialogue about planning a wedding on the boat. They're a really, really wonderful, intimate wedding ceremony.
And not to sound like, pride filled business owner, but really the website mainschooners.com is really like, it has a lot of information on it. I've had a lot of years to have people ask me questions, and then I ask always the people work for me, like, what did people ask you this year? Like what are people, and it's really easy to book on there, but I think it helps you get an idea, because I like to be a yes person. Like I'd like to do things, We've definitely over the years, picked people up at their houses on their islands. Like, we've done weddings in other towns because they wanted to take all of their wedding people out and that town didn't offer. I can say I have dropped off and picked people up Islesboro, North Haven, Vinyl Haven, Stonington, Deer Isle.
Oh.
Those are all places that are quite a ways away from us. But, I also like it when somebody has a vision. And I think we're both really good at working with we want people to have a great experience. I think that's true. I mean,
yeah, definitely. And we can provide a range of options too. We work with a great local caterer, McGonagall Market, so we can help people coordinate all their catering for their wedding. We have a lot of great photographers that we know in the area, so we're happy to connect people to make that day really special.
That's awesome. As we wrap up, I would love to hear from you each. What would you say that you're famous for?
I was just thinking about one of my friends, their youngest child said, hey, Dad, what's the most famous person you know? Because my friend works on a lot of these yachts. And so, he told his son whatever, and he turned it around. He's like, hey, Alden, who's the most famous person that you know? And he's like, oh, definitely Aaron Lincoln. That guy knows everybody. It still makes me laugh today.
Aaron Lincoln is the most famous person I know.
I'm definitely not the most famous person, but it made me smile. Or like actually your mom, Jaclyn's mom is a teacher. And one time a kid who I had never met before on a school project did a whole picture, they were making like a cartoon report of their summer. But it was a whole Pictionary of me with my like long hair and my beard on a boat. And then the kid even wrote Olad on the boat that he was drawing.
Aw.
So the
Wow.
whole report was Jaclyn's mom was like, you must know this kid. I'm like, nope, I don't even know the kid's parents. I was like, that's cool. I mean, not to sound a little weird, but I mean, it is kind of like far reaching. Like I went to Quebec and ran into people I knew, I was in Puerto Rico a couple of years ago. And our last few nights we spent at a resort before we were going home. And there was 2 kids playing Frisbee on the beach. And I am like running down the beach. And then I had to run back. And I looked and the kid was wearing an Olad hat. And I looked at him and he looked at me for a second. And I was like, did you? And he goes, yeah. And it was just like kind of funny. So, you don't realize like how Camden has really plays into the world too. I mean, there's a lot of people that are coming and going out of here, which also makes this place beautiful and interesting. But if I really think about what I'm famous for, I was like, I think I'll say it's like, in a way, I have a real sense of place here. Like I'm Aaron Lincoln, and that's Lincolnville, Maine. Like that's named after my ancestors.
Wow.
So like for me, I think what makes me famous is like of all these captains down here, I'm really from here, but I'm not like just from here one generation. I'm like here for generations. And most of the people that are on the schooners down here aren't actually from here at all. I mean, they're from everywhere else, but this is where I grew up.
That's very significant.
I think what makes the Olad and the Owl so famous in the area is just the amazing crew that we have. We have such passionate employees who just love, like Aaron said, they just love what they're doing. They love these boats. They just live and breathe for sailing. So I think the passion that our crew shows makes us famous, and just the beautiful craft of the boats too. They really stand out in the harbor. They're just so beautiful. So I think that's what makes them famous.
Those are amazing answers. Before we go, how can people find you online? I know we talked about it, but let's share one more time your website and your Instagram.
Yeah, so you can find us at mainschooners.com, and we're on Instagram at Schooner Olad.
Great. Thank you so much for both being on the show.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks. It's been great.
Thanks for listening. To learn even more about what makes Mid-Coast Maine so special, visit our website at camdenfamous.com or head over to Instagram where you can find us at Camden Famous.